There we go. So, hi, Hadley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I have to kind of give a little bit of an intro and explain that we went to Napa Valley and went to visit Domaine Carneros, and Hadley was our host. And so she's the wine educator and has been working in the wine industry for quite some time. She's going to let us know a little bit more about herself. But this was such a fantastic visit. And the reason why it was fantastic is because, of course, we had some bubbly, but mainly because of you. So I wanted to do this interview because I think that it's important to highlight the people that are actually connecting the product to the customer. So
I love that.
Thank you for doing this. And so we'll start with, if you could tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am Bay Area born and raised. Well, I was raised in Berkeley, California, which for anyone who kind of has followed, California slow food scene, Berkeley kind of was ahead of the game, in the 70s. Most, kind of notoriously is Alice Waters, who started Chez Panisse in what now is called the Gourmet Ghetto in Berkeley. And that was just a few blocks from my house. And what Alice Waters really did was she was kind of the first person in the US to really kind of go back to European style food where the menu changes daily, the vegetables are grown locally, very kind of this idea of slow food, fresh, local, and organic. And so that had a spillover to the community. So a lot of restaurants, cheese shops, wine shops kind of took note of this. And so she's definitely an icon, and having grown up so close to Chez Panisse, it definitely had a huge impact on how I, saw food. And so my first kind of introduction into wine was actually just working in the restaurant scenes in Berkeley. And so from the time I was 14, I was working in some of the local restaurants, and there was just an obvious kind of, natural progression to the older that you get, the more you kind of get introduced into wine. And so that was kind of initially what attracted me to food and wine. It wasn't really until I became an adult that I started to really kind of dive into it. Oddly enough, when I first started dating my current husband, now going on 20 years, he was working here at Domaine Carneros. He started out just working in the cellar. He had a background in geology, kind of fell out of love with geology, and it kind of landed him here in wine country, as it does for so many people. They kind of have their second career, third career, fourth career. That's one of the things that makes wine and food so special, is that usually it's a passion that ends up how people get here. Some people kind of start out that way, and then some people kind of through a windy road end up here. So really my first introduction to true wine was I was still studying down in Berkeley, and already up here in Napa, and I would come up on the weekends, and he would be working harvest, and I would come visit him here at Domaine Carneros. I didn't really know too much other than just kind of some restaurant experience. So this was really a place that has such history for us, because it was kind of where I fell in love with my husband, where I fell in love with wine. He has since moved on to other different wineries and is still currently working in the wine industry. But this was really kind of my first introduction to even into really great sparkling wine. So I moved to Napa, or I moved to Sonoma, I should say, in 2005, and then pretty much had worked in restaurants all kind of throughout wine country. And it wasn't until about 3 years ago that I decided that I wanted to actually go work for a winery. And we have quite a few choices here in Napa. We have over 500 tasting rooms alone in Napa. I think there's over 2,000 in Sonoma. But I really wanted to work for a place, A, that makes good wine, because that's kind of a perk of working in the wine industry, a lot of free wine, and B, a company that I believe in. And there's a lot of things that about Domaine Carneros that make me love this company. A, it's female run, it's this commitment to sustainability, and just the culture that they've created here. I mean, you have people who've worked here for 10, 20 years. I jokingly say I'll work here till the day I die. I'll be here one day a week pouring wine for an hour on the terrace. That's kind of, the long and short of how I ended up here in Domaine Carneros.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But so you started with bubbles, basically.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Is that your favorite
Hands
wine
down.
or?
Hands down. And one of the reasons why I enjoy bubbles is I always joke the bubbles do all the work for you. You don't have to swish it around in your glass. You don't have to kind of, get it messy. The bubbles do it everything. You don't have to even swish it around in your mouth. The bubbles do all the work. You get to be kind of a lady and just kind of drink your bubbles and enjoy the view. And it's just fun. Not only is it gorgeous to look at, it's very hypnotizing to just look at the bubbles kind of slowly come up in the glass, but it's also just, the different, ombre of colors that you can get with sparkling. And I feel like bubbles bring out the best in me. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. So, how hard or easy was it for you to get, to become a host and become a wine educator and basically learn all the different?
Yeah, that's a great question. Funny because I'm married to a winemaker, so you would think that I would have this kind of vast depth of knowledge, and I really didn't. I mean, I knew kind of the basics, but one of the things that was great about kind of working here was kind of the ramp up program, the kind of learning, and I shadowed a bunch of people who've been working here for over 10 years for the first couple of days, learn about how they talk about it. We also have wonderful tours that I went on, and they give you a great kind of study packet. I think one of the best things for me was actually just sitting down with the winemaker and tasting the wines and being able to kind of understand the whole process. And it's not something that I learned in the first week. It's something that I continue to educate myself and talk to people about, and I continue to taste at other wineries, and I continue to go to other sparkling houses and even bubble bars that can focus on some international bubbles as well. That's, I think, one of the fun things about wine is that you never reach the end. You never get to a point where you know it all. And I think that's a really humbling, but also exciting. What makes wine exciting is it's go down the rabbit hole for as long as you want.
Yeah, that's true. So what would people be most surprised to learn about your job?
I think most people would be surprised to learn. Well, that's a really great question. I think that most people would be surprised to learn kind of how much I love my job. I mean, I think that's people are like, oh, totally, is it brutal? Like, I'm like, this is the best job I've ever had. And I think maybe that's not surprising, but I think it's pretty special to finally find your groove. I'm 40 and I love working in restaurants, but I am the happiest I've ever been working in a winery. And it's just been so great. I mean, I think that's at the end of the day, to anyone who's listening, it's like, if you love wine, get into the wine business. There is no, funner place to work than something that you're passionate about. So,
yeah. Speaking about that, I mean, it's been known that throughout history, we tend to look at the wine industry as a male-dominated industry. But you have a brand new CEO, and actually, the Domaine has been run by women ever since it was launched.
Yes.
And so now your CEO was quoted saying that, for the first half of my career, I shied away from this subject of being a woman in a wine business. As I moved up the ladder on the winemaking and management sides of this industry, the gap became more obvious. So back to you, what are some of the obstacles you've had to overcome? Not necessarily because you're a woman but.
Absolutely. I think, it's very much like the restaurant industry also, that it's a very male-dominated industry. And I'm not quite sure why that is. I'm finding that the younger generation, I'm finding all these young somms that are female, somms that are really kind of just shaping the way that we actually even taste wine at restaurants. I find that really kind of exciting. It definitely was a huge pull for me to work for Eileen because she's considered such an icon, not just here in the Valley. I mean, in the wine industry, and she's so humble. I don't think she ever wanted to. That was something she just wanted to be kind of recognized for the wines, and I think that that's really admirable. And our new CEO is, stepping into line along with the kind of same virtues, which I find amazing because it is such a male-dominated industry. I do love that I'm seeing all these younger generation winemakers as well as sommeliers because they really, I think that women have definitely a little bit more sensitivity in their palate. I think that they're definitely more out those delicacies, and I think that changes what you see at your restaurant list. That changes how your wine is perceived. And I think you're getting back to a little bit more refinement with that because we're not going after these high octane, high alcoholic wines. And I think that that might just be something that happens kind of through, just because males actually physically have not as many sensors on their palate. So I think that that's what you're seeing as far as the way the wines are being produced, as well as the wines that are being chosen for wine lists at restaurants.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about cuvée. I do have one question actually, because Domaine Carneros is owned by Taittinger. So do you feel that there's a big difference between the Taittinger and the Brut for
there is because of the terroir. And I think as far as branding goes and kind of what they consider themselves, there's a lot of alignment. I think but one of the things that they wanted to set aside was that this is their American kind of outpost, and so let's focus on the fruit that's so special here in Napa. And they're, both of our Tête de Cuvées are Blanc de Blancs, but they taste very different, and they're very, of course, highlighting the terroir. And so a lot of times we might have guests who come here, they go, "Oh, I love the Comte de Champagne. How is that, comparable to our Tête de Cuvée de la Rêve?" And I say, well, California is warmer. We get riper fruit here. We get a little bit more sunshine. And so that a lot of times that's translated into a little bit more tropical, a little bit more pineapple flavors as opposed to kind of a little bit more minerality or kind of those steely, limestone notes that you get from Champagne. And so, but they're both Blanc de Blancs. And so that is a very kind of, that's a choice, was to make the Blanc de Blancs because they have the best ageability and there's so much wonderful acid in the Blanc de Blancs.
Yeah, the Chardonnay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your favorite bottle in the...
I would say, for every day, I'm definitely doing the super dry. I love the ultra brutes or the extra brutes. We have one that's about 0.4 grams of sugar per liter, so bone dry. I love those. They're steer. But for celebrations, I'm definitely doing this beautiful bad boy.
Which one? That's your Tête de Cuvée, right?
That's our Tête de Cuvée. And we joke you don't have to save it for a celebration. It becomes a celebration when you open it. But it's wonderful because it just has all that nice acidity. That has that beautiful backbone of acidity, but then you get that wonderful kind of creme brulee silky finish that is just so signature with it. It's aged 6 years on the leaves. So that's my fun wine. That's the one that I'm gonna, if I'm feeling kind of fancy, that's the one.
All right, very cool. So if you had to choose red, white, or rosé?
Rosé all day.
Really?
Yeah, rosé all day. There you go, girl.
I love it. What's your favorite food pairing since you worked in the restaurant?
You know what? I'm gonna have to go truffled French fries and sparkling. That's the best.
Truffled French fries and what?
Sparkling wine or champagne. That's the best.
Okay.
Little salty crunch, little flavor, nice little bursty bubbles.
Okay. And what famous person would you love to share a glass of sparkling with?
I would say, I know it's probably going to sound cheesy, but I got to go Oprah. She's met everybody. She's met everybody.
Except
queen. She's the queen. And I did actually get to meet her a couple of years ago. I was volunteering at the Napa Valley auction, and this was probably almost like 8 years ago. And she had come in, and she was just as fabulous in person as she is on TV. So
yeah,
she's an icon.
Cool. And what's your champagne pet peeve?
My champagne pet peeve is when people take off the wire header, the bedule, and they don't have they're not protecting the cork. I get so paranoid. I think someone's going to I'm a mom of a 9-year-old. I think, oh my God, that someone's going to take their eye out. Someone's going to, I go into mom mode. I'm like, oh, the light bulb's going to pop. Protect the top.
Yeah, people forget, that's true. Talking about the pandemic, I mean, we're almost out of it, thank God. But what's the single most important thing that this whole situation has taught you?
Life is too short to drink the house wine.
That's very good. And to finish, what is the one question that I obviously didn't ask you, but you would have wished I did?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let me think. I think one of the things that I'd like to just touch on is that I hope one of my biggest goals as a wine educator is to really help Americans understand that sparkling is it's not just meant for celebrations, it's meant for every day. And that you can pair it with every type of food. You can have it with curries, you can have it with Mexican, you can have it with French fries, tacos, sushi. And I think still Americans think of it as being just celebration wine, when in fact it's wine for every day.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's mostly because they see it for special occasions, something fancy, whereas I think we see it as a wine. So if you go in that frame of mind, then you know you can have it at any moment and any day, like you said. Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Are you working? Are you going to head to the Domaine or?
Yep, that's right.
You are. Okay.
Going back to pour on the terrace.
Yeah, I wish I could be there. It was just such a lovely experience and
come back
memorable because of you. So thank you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.